Thank you for joining us for today's message. We believe we can go anywhere in the world from right here in Lamarque, Texas, and reach people just like you. If you'd like more information about Abundant Life, please visit ALCC.org. You can also text the number below if you would like to support the church financially. Be ready for a powerful message that's going to impact your life.
I don't know about you, but sometimes it's difficult to talk to family members, difficult to talk to friends who knew who we used to be, what we used to do. And so I think that Jesus shows us some things in here, but then it also shows us some areas in our own life where maybe we've got some stuff from the past that's trying to jump up and grab a hold of us, or maybe we have some issues or some problems that we've got to get over. And so I think this story touches a lot of things. So John chapter 4, today in verse 1, and it says, "And Jesus had learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although it was a fact that it was not Jesus who baptized, but it was his disciples. So he left Judea, and he went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria." I like that it said he had to. Did he have to? No, he didn't. Because he actually could have done a straight shot and got to where he wanted to go, but he had to kind of go out of his way, and it says he went through Samaria. So it wasn't that he had to get where he was going. He had to because God had a plan. Right? So God had something that needed to be done in Samaria, and in order for that to happen, Jesus had to get there. Okay, so watch. God is going to take you to places, and there are going to be opportunities and things that you go into that you say, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on in my world. But look, God is going to take you sometimes out of your way to get you where he needs you, to get you where you can be influential, to get you where you can do what he is calling you to do. So it said he went to Samaria. And he came to a town called Sychar near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there, and Jesus was tired from his journey, and he sat down by the well. Now it was about noon, and a Samaritan woman came to draw water out of the well, and Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" Now I'll just paraphrase what happens from here instead of reading it, because it's a lot of scripture to read. So Jesus now is tired from his journey. He comes in, he sits down by the well. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and culturally, you would not draw water at noon. It's hot, it's miserable, so you would draw water out of the well. It's tedious work. This well's like 150 feet deep. It would be difficult to do, and so you would do this in the morning time, and you would do it in the evening time. That's how you would do this. And so when this woman is showing up to the well to draw water at noon, there's a reason that she's coming at 12. There's a reason, because she's trying to avoid everybody else. She's trying to avoid the gossip, trying to avoid the side glances from everybody else, trying to avoid the shade that people are casting on her. She's trying to avoid every other person by going at a time that nobody else would go. That's what this woman was doing, because she understood that there was something about her past that other people would know, and she didn't want to be talked about. I don't know if you've ever been in those kind of situations. If you've ever been in a place where you try and avoid a circumstance, or trying to avoid a place, or trying to avoid something because you know that there are issues in those places. You know that somebody might know something about you, or they might think something about you, so you go out of your way to be uncomfortable so you don't have to face the facts. You don't have to face what's going on. And it says that as she's coming up, she's going to draw the water, and Jesus speaks to her, and he said, "Will you give me a drink?" And this woman looks at him, and she's like, "Man, what the heck are you doing talking to me?" She says, "What are you, a Jew, doing talking to me, a Samaritan?" It said, because the Jews did not associate with Samaritans. And Jesus said, "If you knew the gift of God and who it was that asks you for a drink," he said, "you would be the one asking me for a drink." He said, "You'd be asking me. I wouldn't be asking you. If you knew what was going on and who was talking to you," he said, "you would have asked me." Now watch this. It's, we're kind of going through a season in our nation right now that is an intense season. It's with COVID, with racial unrest, with people rioting and things happening, and the world is kind of in a flux. People don't know what's going on and what's going to happen, and there are some people that think the world's going to end, and who knows what's happening. All I know is God's still on the throne. All I know is I cannot understand everything else, but I understand one thing, and that is God is still in control. No matter how crazy it looks, no matter what is going on, God is still in control. Look at your neighbor and say, he still knows what he's doing. He still knows what he's doing. But you see, there's racial unrest in our nation right now. And I think that things are finally starting to hopefully change, because I think change is needed. And I think that change is coming. But here's the thing. Racial unrest is not new with America. And it's not new right now. Jesus was dealing with racism in Samaria. Because watch, the Jews and the Samaritans hated one another. The Samaritans hated the Jews, and the Jews hated the Samaritans. Why? Because here, let me explain it to you. So the Samaritans were a group of people that believed in God, okay? So they believed in the same God that the Jewish people did, but here's the deal. They believed that when God came and visited Moses on the mountain, that in that moment, their religious learning stopped at that place. So they took the first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, and that is what they believed. And they believed that once God sent that everything else was done. There was no more. So they worshiped on that mountain. They worshiped those books. They worshiped that God. And now the Jews went farther. So they saw that God was greater than that. And they went farther with that. And so what they did is they went into Jerusalem and they built a temple in Jerusalem. And they offered to God in Jerusalem. So their holy place was the temple, which was in Jerusalem. Well, the Samaritans worshiped on the mountain. So you had 2 different people that believed in the same God, but they believed different things about God. And so they hated one another. Samaria was a melting pot. It was a place where different people believed different things, and they didn't believe what the Jews necessarily believed. And they worshiped on the mountain, and watch this, it was good enough for them. They said what God used to do is good enough for us. It's fine. It worked for our fathers. It's working for us. And they refused to go farther. And the Jews hated them for it. And the Samaritans hated the Jews for it. Watch, I think that same thing still happens today. I think that churches don't like other churches. Religions don't like other religions. Why? Because there's spiritual elitism, saying that I'm right and you're wrong. And so you say, hey, my view of God is better than your view of God, so I'm right and you're wrong and you're messed up in your beliefs and I'm right in all of mine. And watch this, what we do is we build walls between us instead of building bridges. But God did not call us as believers to build walls between our churches. He did not call for there to be a wall between the Presbyterian church and the Lutheran church and the Methodist church and the Charismatic church. They are not supposed to be walls. They're supposed to be bridges. Because at the end of the day, we all believe in Jesus. We all believe that he came to the earth, died on a cross, and rose from the grave. And if any church says it, proclaims it, and believes it, then I am a friend of that house. I believe it with them. I believe. Now, they may have some other beliefs that I may not agree on, but here's the deal. In what we agree on, I love. What we don't agree on, I give them freedom to just do what they do, because they're going to answer for that, not me. So I may not believe it, but hey, I'm still going to love God. I'm still going to believe God. And watch this. I'm not going to say, hey, they're completely wrong and throw everything out. Why? Because that's not what God called us to do. God called us to do what? Build bridges between each other. All you do when you know, I've got a lot of friends that are Catholics. A lot of people I know are Catholics. A lot of friends, and there's some people that would say, man, the Catholic Church is wrong, and this and that. Now, do I believe everything the Catholic Church believes? No, I don't. There's a lot of stuff they believe. I personally, I just don't see it. Now, here's the deal. I could say, man, the Catholics are all going to hell. I could say that, but how many of y'all know that's nonsense? Like, why would I say that? No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, do you believe in Jesus? Yes, good. Let's start there and build a bridge and have a conversation instead of throwing walls up and trying to fight one another. God didn't call us to infight. He called us to stand together and fight the devil. Fight the evil in this world. Fight the darkness. That's what we're called to do. And so Jesus comes to a woman, and this woman has some preconceived ideas about Jesus. Jesus had tried one other time to go to Samaria, and he tried one other time to minister in Samaria. And watch this, they rejected him. Why did they reject him? They rejected him because he was from Jerusalem and he worshiped that God that way. And so they wanted nothing to do with him, so they rejected him. And now he comes again. He had to go through Samaria. God was calling him because there was a woman there that needed a touch from God. And here's the deal. This woman was coming at the well at noon. She was coming in an hour where nobody else would come. Why? Because she was saying, what if someone sees me? She was playing a game of what if. Look, I don't know if you've ever had those kind of thoughts. What if this happens? What if that happens? I think it's easy in the world that we live in to think of the what ifs. And here's the deal. You can play what if on both sides. You can say, what if I go to church and I get sick? What if I step outside of my house and an airplane falls out of the sky and runs right into me? What if I drive my car and I get a flat tire? You can play that side of the game. But what if works on the other side too. What if says, hey, what if I go to church and I get healed instead of getting sick? What if I walk out of my house and my neighbor's there and they're weeping because something bad happened and I have an ability to speak life into them? What if I go and I drive to where I'm supposed to go and somebody hands me $1 million? Who knows? What if can be played on both sides? Look, your faith and your fear are the exact same. It's just on different sides of the line. Faith and fear are the same reaction. You're just on one side of the line or the other. You either have faith that believes God can, or you have fear that believes God won't. And this woman was playing what if. What if I go to the well and somebody's there and they see me and they laugh at me and they mock me and they spit on me and they throw things at me? What if? But here's the deal. God was saying, what if you go and God shows up? What if you go and life comes in for the first time? What if you go and somebody loves you instead of hates you? You got to start believing, what if something good can happen? What if I get up and something good can happen? What if I go and something good happens? So many times we're afraid to make a phone call because what if they say something I don't like? But what if they say something you do? What if something good happens? We've got to start believing like that. We've got to start standing on the something good can happen. Jesus says to this woman, he's sitting on the side of the well, and he says, hey, can I get a drink? Starts a conversation. It's the first of 205 words that they exchange. One of the longest conversations that we have Jesus recorded in the Bible, talking with anybody, and he comes out, and I love it because Jesus comes out in this situation, and all he does is ask a question, can I get a drink? You have the most holy, spiritual, righteous person on the face of the earth, and you have a woman who is ashamed of who she is, and she's afraid enough to where she comes at noon to draw water out of a well, and instead of Jesus coming out swinging and telling her how messed up she is and how broken she is, all he does is ask a question. He starts a conversation. He starts by saying, hey, can I get a drink? Look, that teaches us something about talking to our friends, talking to our family members, talking to coworkers, talking to people that we may not even know. Instead of coming out swinging spiritually, saying, hey, you're going to rot in hell if you keep making those decisions. What if we just came out and had a conversation? What if we just came out and loved somebody? What if we just came out and talked to somebody and started a conversation? Man, so many times when I meet new people, I don't just come out and tell them I'm a preacher, because if I do, they throw walls up. Because they might have had a bad experience with God, or they might have had a weird preacher before, or they might have some preconceived idea about who church is and what church is. But the reality is, I'll just come out and be a friend. I'll come out and start a conversation and just be a normal human being. And all of a sudden, that conversation will always lead into what it is. We should learn from Jesus. We should learn how to build a foundation, build a friendship. You want to witness to your friends and family members and coworkers, build a relationship. Be a friend first and a missionary second. Just start a conversation. Just be friendly. Care about them. Show them that you love them no matter what's going on in their world. And I promise when it's time to listen, they will listen. Jesus at this point wasn't really interested in water. Did he need water? Probably, but that's not why he was there. Watch this. He asked her for something so that he could get to the root of the problem. He started with one thing, give me a drink of water, because he wanted to start the conversation. It was the water for her. That's what she was holding on to. She was holding on to some issues from her past, some preconceived ideas from her past. She was holding on to some traditions of the past. And Jesus was trying to break this off of her life. Jesus was trying to do something that was about to set this woman free and to give her something that she could step into tomorrow with. Watch this. She was haunted by her yesterday, and Jesus was trying to give her a tomorrow. Man, that is the biggest tool that the enemy has against your life, is he will use your yesterday to rob your tomorrow. The devil understands if he can get you to be thinking about all the messed up stuff you did then you will never think about how good it can be then. If you're thinking about yesterday, you'll never be able to focus on tomorrow, because he wants to drag you down with your past. Look, your past can either be an anchor that holds you back, or it can be a springboard that shoots you forward. You have the ability to choose. And you say, yeah, you don't know where I've been. You don't know what I've done. No, I don't, but God does. And God still chose you. And God still picked you. And God still loves you. And God still has a destiny and a plan for you. And God's plan is for you to go forward, not look backwards. And this woman was looking backwards, and she had all these ideas about how she was supposed to act and what she was supposed to do. And Jesus is trying to get her to step into a better tomorrow. She took other people's offense and started spitting it at Jesus. Hey, can I get a drink of water? What are you, a Jew, doing talking to me, a Samaritan? Don't you know our people don't talk to each other? Jesus is like, this isn't our problem. This has nothing to do with me and you. It has everything to do with people that you know, talking to this woman, people that you know their offense, not my offense. Look, I don't make blanket statements. I don't have blanket people, because, look, I'm not going to take somebody else's offense and make it my issue. I'm not going to do it online. I'm not going to do it in person. I'm not going to take somebody else's problem and take on that problem for myself just because my skin might be the same color, or I might be the same sex, or I might be the same age, or I might be the same whatever. I'm not going to take their offense and use it as my own to attack a group of people. That makes no sense to me. It's crazy. And that's what this woman was trying to do. And Jesus says, nah, man, we has nothing to do with that. I'm just thirsty. I was just wondering, I saw you had a bucket, and I was wondering if I could get a quick drink of water before you go on your way. He was just having a conversation, just trying to love this woman into something. He was loving first. He didn't judge. He loved. People all the time, They think because, again, I'm a preacher, and they think because I'm a preacher that I'm their judge. And they're like, man, don't judge me. I'm like, man, I'm not no judge. I was like, I don't wear a robe you can see. Like, I don't have a gavel in my hand. I'm not a judge. Look, the one who could have been a judge, the one who should have been a judge, Jesus, he didn't judge. He loved. So if the judge didn't judge, then what business do I have trying to judge somebody by their mistakes or their issues or their past? Because I've got issues too. I've got a past too. I've got problems too. So I can't be judging them when I can't get my life right either. You got to realize we're all messed up, but thank God we're working towards being right. We're working on being good. And the only way we'll ever make it to good is by loving people, by loving God, by loving ourselves. That's the only way we can get there. We can't do it by hating other people. And this woman was in a bad spot. She was in a bad place. And he said, man, I'd like a glass of water. I'd like a drink. And this woman said in verse 11, she said, sir, you have nothing to draw the water with, and this well is deep. She said, man, where can you get the living water? Because Jesus had told her. He said, look, if you knew who you were talking to, you would ask me for water, and I would give you water that will never be quenched, that will never run dry. He said, I'll give you living water. And she's like, man, what are you talking about? She's like, this well is deep, 100 feet deep, 9 feet wide, 15 feet of water in this well. And she said, and there is nothing in your hand to draw this water. So where are you going to get this living water? So she asked him, she said, how is it going to happen? Why? Because she was thinking about the natural when Jesus was talking about the spiritual. Look, in God will always talk to you on two different planes. He will talk to you in the natural world about spiritual things. And watch, he will let you understand that your spiritual and your natural so often run parallel with one another. And if you can get the natural right, the spiritual will always follow. And if you get the spiritual right, the natural will always follow. They run congruently. They run together. And she didn't get it. And she was like, what are you talking about? Because here's the thing. She had a spiritual need. She had a natural need. And they were competing against one another, which will always happen in your life. Your natural and your spiritual will fight one another, always. And watch this. So many times the natural will win. If you allow it to, if you don't fight the fight, the natural will win. That's why we fast. That's what fasting's all about. Fasting robs the natural so that the spiritual can have a voice. You rob yourself of food or whatever it is that you're fasting. And so if you can take that out of your life, its voice quiets down and the spiritual voice will come alive. Her natural was winning. She was saying to Jesus, like, man, this doesn't make any sense. That's exactly right. God doesn't make sense. It's nonsense. When we look at God and we look at the things that God can do and the ways that God moves, it makes no sense to us because it's beyond our sense. It's beyond what we can believe. It's beyond what we can think. God is always so much greater. She says, nah, this doesn't make sense. And she was thinking that Jesus is some magic water guy. But Jesus is like, no, I'm not this water person. I'm not. It's something different. It's spiritual, even though you're thinking natural. You see, we have to remember that God is our source. God created everything. He was the beginning of it all. He was the source at the beginning. And if God created it, then God is our source. And Jesus is like to this woman, he said, listen, he said, I know we're talking about water. He said, but let me go ahead and get things fixed in your life. Let me talk to you about something that's about to blow your mind. And he asked her, he said, why don't you go get your husband and have him come and get some of this water too? And this woman looks at him and she said, man, I don't have a husband. And I love this because watch, when the next statement that Jesus makes, he's not mocking her, not railing her, he's not laughing at her, he's not hating her, he's not judging her. He's telling her the truth. Jesus says, I know that you don't have a husband. He said, you've had 5. The man you're with now is not your husband either. See, you've had 5, and the one you're with now is also not your husband. And she was like, whoa, how did you know this? She was like, man, that's exactly right. It's true. Now, here's the deal. Jesus didn't judge her. He didn't laugh at her. He didn't mock her. He just spoke the truth. And watch this. When you speak the truth in love, though it may sting, it is always, it's medicine. The truth spoken the right way is medicine. But here's the problem with the truth. There are ways to use the truth as a weapon. And a lot of people will either run from the truth. They know what's true. They know what's going on, but they run from it. Or number 2, what they will do is they will use the truth to say things that they shouldn't. And so they will hide behind speaking the truth so that they can stab you and they can hurt you and they can judge you with the truth. Jesus didn't do any of this. He spoke in love. He said, listen, I know your situation. I know your issues. I know your problems. And he said, it doesn't disqualify you. And that's what I love about God. That's what I love about Jesus so much, is that our issues and our problems and all of our messed up lives, it doesn't disqualify us from his love. It doesn't disqualify us from his service. It qualifies us. Because in our weakness, he is made strong. In our problems, his grace is shown greater. And he said to this woman, I know that you have had 5 husbands. And the man that you're with now is not your husband. He said, but listen, he said, there's going to come a time. He said, because she's like, yeah, but we worship on this mountain and y'all worship there. And he said, no, it has nothing to do with where we worship. He said, because watch, there's going to be a time, because God is a spirit, and those that worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. He said, listen, you've got to understand something, that there is a new way to worship. And it's not about location, it's about attitude. There's a new way that we're going to serve God, and it has nothing to do with where we do it. It has everything to do with how we do it and what we do. It has everything to do with our attitude and our love for him. Because watch, you can worship God in the church, but you can have the wrong heart. You can worship him in your car and have the right heart. Which do you think God loves more? It's all about your heart. It's about your attitude. And he said, listen, we are going to a place where our worship is going to come before God. And he said, and you've been locked down by offenses of other people and your own mistakes and your own problems and your own issues. And he said, right about this time, verse 27, his disciples returned and they were surprised to find him talking with a woman. Why? Because no rabbi, no teacher, nobody in that profession, in that business would ever speak with a woman in public by themselves. It would never happen. Never. Culturally, it would never happen. And they were looking, and not only, look, you wouldn't find a rabbi out in public speaking with his own mother, with his own sister. Culturally, that's exactly how it was. So for his disciples to roll up, and Jesus is sitting on the edge of this well, talking with a woman who is an absolute stranger, they were like, what is this? Their minds were blown, and Jesus is just talking, and they couldn't believe it. But it said they didn't ask him. They didn't say, what's going on, or why are you talking with her? They just left it alone. And watch this, verse 28. Then it said, then leaving her water jar, the woman ran back to the town, and she told the people, and she said, man, listen to what this guy just did. Come and see a man who told me all I ever did. She said, can this be the Christ? A couple of things that we can look at in that real quick. Number one, she left her jar. Why did she go to the well? To get water. What did she bring to the well to get water in? Her jar. What did she need more than anything else? She needed water. And here's the deal. When she had a relationship with God, when God met her where she was, that thirst in the natural went away. Why? Because what God is going to do when he touches your life spiritually, when he changes your world, he is going to meet your natural needs. He's going to change things naturally. But then it goes another step, and it says that she runs into the town. And she says, come and see a man who told me all I ever did. Now, I've always kind of wondered about that, because when you look at that, I kind of think to myself, I said, did Jesus tell her all that she ever did? I mean, maybe they have a conversation that we don't know about, but what it says is he told her that she'd had 5 husbands, and the man she's with is not her husband. But here's the deal. She took something small that God had told her, and she exaggerated it. She took something small. Hey, God did this. She told me one thing that I've done, but man, I'm going to tell everybody, he told me everything. Now, is she lying? No, she's exaggerating. Why? Because she found one small thing that God was doing in her life, and she said, man, I'm so excited about the small thing. I want to tell him that God can do all things. I want to tell him he told me everything. And watch this, all of a sudden, what she did is she exaggerated the small things that God did in her life. Look, this is a lesson that we need to learn. If you want God to do big things in your life, you got to start looking at the small things and start exaggerating the small. That doesn't mean we make up our testimony or we lie about what God's doing. No, we find God in every situation. We find him in the small areas. We find him in all those little pieces that everybody else may dismiss. But God saw me in one small thing. And I know that great things have small beginnings. Big things start in small packages. You don't have to make up the testimony. You just got to find the areas that God is doing something. You got to see God do the small miracles. So often we want the burning bush experience. We want to see God do something huge in our life. But here's the deal. We got to start looking where God can do the small. That God can start somewhere. God's grace is life-changing. God's grace is overwhelming. And watch this. His grace overwhelmed this woman to the point of exaggeration. That's what I want you to do this week. I want you to begin to find the small things. So this story is about, it's about what God is doing in your life. And watch this, and you finding the small things that God is doing compelling. Did you find those small things that they are so amazing, that it's so great that God gave you an opportunity, so great that God opened one small door, so great that God brought this person into your life? You start looking for the areas that God can do something great. Start looking for those small miracles. Stop looking and expecting God to just blow things open. Can he? Yes. Will he? Probably. But what happens, it happens in small areas. Start looking for those small areas. Start looking, because when you start looking for them, not only will you find them, but those small things will begin to open up big things. It's like one crack, one little pinhole. I've got a copper pipe up in my attic a couple of weeks ago that had the tiniest little pinhole. You couldn't even see it, but it was a tiny pinhole in my hot water, and it started to spray out in my attic. And the whole, there was like a 20 square foot section of the roof or of the ceiling in one of my upstairs bedrooms got completely destroyed because of the tiniest little pinhole. because I didn't notice it until it was already too late. And here's the thing, that little itty bitty hole that took 5 minutes to fix destroyed that whole ceiling. I got to have it all redone. But watch, it's the little things that, watch, if you can just find those tiny areas, all of a sudden those little areas, now this was something bad, but God will do something good. God will use that small area to begin to just saturate your entire life and change people around you. And he's going to give you influence, and he's going to give you opportunity, and he's going to open doors, and he's going to do big things, but they're going to start in small packages. So my charge to you this week is look. Ask God. Say, God, speak to me in a small area. God, find me something. God, give me an opportunity. God, bring me in the path of somebody that needs an answer. God, show me something. And so many times we want God to give us this giant thing. God, give me something huge. But God says, I'm trying, but it's going to start small. Every person starts as a baby. Small, tiny, helpless. And so often the miracles in our life, the dreams, the destiny, it starts small. But watch, God will expand those areas. And so my charge to you, my plan for you this week, my hope for you this week is that God's going to show you one small thing, one area that you can begin to exaggerate, that you can begin to talk about, that you can begin to tell people. And they may be thinking, man, what are they talking about? And you say, man, God did this week. God did this for me today. You'll never guess what God did for me. Watch this. The more you talk about it, the more God will do. Why? Because it starts small, but it begins to expand. And so I believe this week that God is going to speak to you. God's going to open doors. He's going to open windows of opportunity. There are going to be areas in your life this week. My prayer is this is the week that things change. This is the week that dreams begin to come to pass. This is the week that your destiny begins to happen. This is the week that everything begins to shift.
To learn more, visit walterhallam.net. Here you'll find a list of resources to help you with your daily walk in Christ.